You're listening to the B4evaKool podcast. My name is Fortyfive. Today we have Carrie Smith with us. How you doing, Carrie?
I'm great. How are you?
Pretty good. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
It's nice to get you on. We were fortunate to get your husband on earlier this year, and it's interesting because, doing these interviews, you really get to know people versus when you're at the track and stuff like that. And Paul has a fascinating story, so it was a fun interview. Just to hear about it and stuff like that. And even just, through him and hearing the history of you guys and your riding and stuff like that and how you got into riding and stuff like that is really pretty cool and awesome. And I will say, officially you're the first woman on the podcast. So exactly.
I'm honored.
Nice. I appreciate you coming on, and hopefully we'll have more women on for sure, because there's a lot of women in racing and stuff like that. But it's hard to tell when the helmets are on,
Yep.
So let's dive into it. Let's talk about how you got into riding, how you were introduced to the motorcycle world.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was all my parents. My dad raced motorcycles, and so my first trip was to Bike Week Daytona when I was 6 months old.
Oh, wow.
I really didn't know any different. So when I was very young, I thought everybody's dads raced motorcycles and there were tracks all over, and I just weren't at all these tracks. And then I found out that my dad was actually really cool, and my mom supported him 100% in his pursuit. So, he had a motorcycle shop, and then that was, as we know, can be a tough business.
Mm-hmm.
So he stepped away from that, but stayed with the racing, and he had sponsored a few people, and then he would then got back into racing himself. So it was really fun, and we just traveled all over. We'd wake up at 3:30 in the morning and drive to Summit Point from New Jersey, and then drive back that evening. So, it was just it was a lifestyle for us. We always had a van or a trailer and a camper, and, motorcycles were constantly in different stages of completion.
Right. Sounds like my garage.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So it was really just my parents, and I had a choice either to like it or not, and I loved it.
Got you. And how old were you when you started riding, or you don't remember? You just knew how to ride because you were riding so young?
I joke around that my first ride was actually in the womb. My mom was pregnant. My dad had run out of gas at turn 1 in Summit Point, so she jumped on the back of a scooter and took gas out to him. But I think I definitely got a trials bike for Christmas, probably when I was 6 or 7, and I immediately popped the clutch, rode it up a bush, and they figured that probably wasn't the time yet. We also lived in suburban New Jersey, so this was not a lot of places to ride. So I mainly learned to ride in the back area of Summit Point. So if everybody's ever been there, it's all the pit areas within, and it's kind of spread out. So I learned to ride a lot in those back woods areas. My mom had a little Suzuki Trails bike, so I would just take that, and while my dad was racing, I would just ride around and put miles and miles on those little back areas.
Wow. And how long did he race for?
He raced up until 2005. He actually had a pretty big accident at Loudon in turn 11-ish. And unfortunately, I kind of felt like a crash would probably stop his career, but it was worse than what we had expected. So it was a tough recovery. He was in the hospital for 3 weeks. So he recovered from it mostly. He did have a stroke afterwards, which affected some of it. And so that was a lot of the reason. But at that point, he was in his late 60s or mid 60s. So it was getting time for him. Not, I'm not saying that's older for everybody, but for him, it was getting time. And I could tell his heart wasn't into it as much, but that really forced the issue. So he stopped in 2005. That was June. And then I started in June of 2007.
Oh, wow. Okay. I started racing.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And so when did you get your own bike and stuff like that and started riding before you got to the track? When did that happen, and what was that like? And were you allowed to ride on the streets or just off-road in woods?
So we had an Aprilia SR50 scooter that was bored out to an 80 with an aero pipe on it. And this thing was awesome.
Oh, wow.
And so we got it at the Mid-Ohio swap meet. And that's what I took my my license on, which the guy was like, I didn't do MSF because I was in New Jersey and it just wasn't as prevalent down there.
Yeah.
I wish I had. But so I brought it and they're like, racing scooter. Well, now I've seen it all. So I passed my test and I rode that for a long time. I worked at a motorcycle shop in New Hope, Pennsylvania. I would ride back and forth. And then I bought my first bike, which I still have, was my 2003 SV650. I bought that in 2004 from a friend.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And the SV is the bike you turned into a track bike, I assume. That.
I did, yeah. So I was very adamant about I raced a CB350, so I had that for my race bike, and I had the SV for my track bike, and I wasn't doing track days at the time, and so it was very much track or street. And so even when I started doing track days, we kept it street, and then the street riding just kind of started to go away, and I really enjoyed the SV, so we converted it to full track.
Got you. And so now riding on, and this is, I guess, around 2000, 2004, you're out of high school already at this point and stuff like that. Yep. Now, because of your dad is the reason why you started going to the track, or did you have friends that also rode and stuff like that?
So I didn't. No, it was just all my dad. And, there were people at the track that we were friends with, but it wasn't like now where you could just message somebody and say, hey, are you going? Like, I would show up and be like, I hope I have a friend. Right. And if I don't, I would make a new one. So I made a lot of friends at the track, including like Zach Kortz and Ari Henning, who are part of Revzilla now. So we kind of all grew up together, which is fun to see those guys and their success. So yeah, Zach actually came and rode one of our track days a few years ago, which was really fun. So so we had this kind of like track rat crew that would kind of probably terrorize and do stupid stuff sometimes, but ride all around the back areas, and we'd go up in the stands and we'd sit in the suites and we'd enjoy the air conditioning. And so, yeah, none of my friends, I never had friends that came into it. It was all people that we had just met there, kids of, other racers.
Right. And so you said you started racing. Did you start doing track days first or racing first? And did your dad have to nudge you and say, time to go race, or you were itching to kind of, all right, like, let me get on the track now?
Oh, good question. So I did my first track day at Pocono East with Nesba, which some people might remember is now turned into N2 on a friend's bike. I did it on an SV actually, and it was good, but I didn't really know where it was going to go from there. And then when my dad had his big accident, we kind of floundered. When you're at the track and you're racing, you have a garage to go to, you have a place to be. And it wasn't that everybody would have invited us to their garage, but it was very different when you don't have your own place. Right. And so we were doing a vintage road ride called the MotoGP, and a dear friend named Pete Talbach was riding with me. And he said to me, he's like, you should think about road racing. He's like, you're a really good rider. And I was like, no, tell me more. So we talked a little bit about it. And then I talked to my dad in December of 2006. And I said, I think I want to try this. And he's like, really? Because I had never shown any interest in doing it. Right. And so, yeah, he was like, okay, we talked a little bit about it. And he's like, all right, let me tell your mother. And he broke it to her, and she did not take it very well, but she's still, to this day, you'll see her out on pit lane giving me signals and doing my lap times. So it really was Pete Talbach who kind of pushed me into racing and convinced me to do it. And then my parents supported me in it. Nice.
And what was the first track you raced at?
First track I raced at was Loudon.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. So that was my first track. And then my second track was Mid-Ohio, where I got hit 2 times in one day because I was a rolling roadblock. But it was pretty traumatizing. There were some tears and figuring out, but I got talked, into going back to Loudon with the people I know and, kind of understanding the first incident was not my fault, but the second one I could have given some room. So I talked through it and figured it out. But for years later, every time I lined up on the grid, I'd look behind me and be like, oh no, who's coming?
I know.
So that was pretty traumatizing. But, so I kind of jumped into the deep end. My parents were allowed us to travel a lot and afforded me that opportunity to ride. I think I've ridden like 17 tracks in my life or something. Nice. So, yeah. So, but a lot of it was because of them and their support of trailering the bike and getting things there. So,
Nice,
Yeah,
nice.
totally.
And you know, you talk about how your first, well, Mid Ohio and the first couple of races. You know, for me, I started at Loudon in 2013. And I remember, you know, doing the penguin school, the basic school
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And, you know, going up turn 4, I think it was coming from 7 to 8. I'm like, what am I doing out here? It's like, what am I doing out here? You know, the first time going out. And then, you know, by the end of the day, I was hooked. You know, being around it and, you know, riding bikes and scooters and your dad and stuff, were you nervous going out? I mean, and you know, when you look back, what was your skill level like? You know, because, you know, I mean, you know, for me, like I bought a bike like the year before from Seacoast, a Ducati Street Fighter, and did like 11,000 miles on it in like 9 months, and then bought Jesse Fenton in Garage 4 SV, and and went out there. Where you know, and so when I look back at it now, it's just like, oh, I should have done track days, because I didn't do any track days until like 2019. So it was like I had all these years of just going to Loudon and racing, and that was it. When you look back now, do you feel like, you know, you knew a lot back then, or you were kind of like, you know, some of us who just show up green?
I mean, I felt like I had a leg up because I knew racing a little bit, but it's very different to be, there's like a poem out there years ago that was made about being on one side of the fence or the other, right? And the people that live on the one side of the fence, they're constantly spectating and like the feelings that they go through. And then the people on the other side of the fence, like understanding that piece of it.
Right.
So when I decided to go to the other side of the fence, I mean, I had a fair amount of natural talent, but I think it was tough for me to, I was competitive, but I also was very much like a female in the sport, feeling like, was I an imposter? Was I am I supposed to be here? I got looked at definitely not by my closest friends and not much by the race organization I was with, but did I feel like I had like a target on me, or, you know, or nobody wanted to get beaten by the girl. So I do think the first couple of years, and I think I did so well too, you know, and I adopted my father's built Honda CB350.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like I got this bike that was really well set up, although I know many people might say a CB350, but if anybody's seen it or knows it or has ridden it, it's a very well set up motorcycle. It's the only one made like it in the world. So It's very, very specialized. Yeah. So, you know, I had all this experience coming in, but not that much. You know, I had a lot of time at the track, but not a lot of miles.
Right.
So, and I think I did pretty well at first, to the point where people wouldn't give me that much feedback. They were just like, yeah, great job. But there were a few people in my life that were like, no, I want you to give it to me straight. Like, tell me how to get faster. And one of them was Paul.
Oh, wow.
So that was a big difference in our lives. Like, that made a huge step forward.
Gotcha. And, you know, getting faster, did you find that was easy? You know, did you find that you put in, you know, some years in to get fast? Because it took me a while to get quick. You know, and I'm still looking for advice. I got to find me a Paul. You know, did that, like, you know, did it come? You said you were natural, so was it like real quick? Because I mean, I think. Probably, I started going like full time at Loudon in 2015, and I became an amateur from a novice in, I think, 16. So yeah, you know, I was one of the people you were beating out there and stuff like that. But did it seem, you know, was it happen really fast for you?
It didn't, and I think that this is a little bit of I've talked to other females about this. It's like women have a trajectory that's a little slower than men. I feel like, you know, I think we're just naturally risk adverse. And so I sometimes joke around that I probably should be faster than what I am for how long I've been riding on track. But I've also, you know, knock on wood, I have escaped some serious injury. And so I feel like I had this talent. I went out there, but I had to do the work. And I'm also a feel rider, which drives Paul nuts sometimes, but, you know, not as calculated as he can be about riding. So, you know, where are all your brake markers? Where are these things? And so I feel like it is a tough one. I do think that for me personally, my trajectory was like pretty steep at first, and then it kind of leveled off, and it's been pretty steady. This past year, I made some steps forward, but I really put work into it. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that like a lot of people, there's these little like steps and bumps and maybe even down before you go back up. And I don't think that my trajectory was high, but I watched when I was racing vintage, my teammates would go out and like break their collarbone or break their and it's just like, he's like, I watched your videos and I was following your stuff, and I'm like, so yeah. So I've always been blessed with like that natural talent and like getting up there, but it's been, the trajectory's been slow.
Wow. Okay. And now the competitive side of you, right? You said, my daughter will disagree with you about, women and men competitive, because she is as competitive as I am. Did that come out, like the competitive side of you? There's times that you come in the paddock and you want to throw your helmet or push the bike over because it didn't work out for you or whatever the case. Man, I'm talking about myself. It didn't work out. I mean, like I'm pretty competitive, and I don't think anyone likes to lose, but like I remember all my losses. So so did that, has that been like an even keel, your competitiveness, or did it over the course of time all of a sudden you just wanted it?
No, I mean, I've always been competitive. So I don't think, and I want to make sure, like, I think women are just as competitive. I just do think that like we learn in a different way. And I think we can be more calculated. And this might be for just women racers. And I don't want to generalize, but this is a conversation I've had with a lot of people. I think it's just kind of part of our DNA. Right. That being said, I am very competitive. And so I've definitely had incidents where I'm pretty sure I was having a bunch of issues. Well, I had a bunch of issues with my CB350 with the clutch. I came in early and I was so mad. I balled up my hand and I smacked the tank, and I actually think I cracked the bone in my hand. I couldn't shake something. So that gives you an indication. Oh, I am competitive, and the highs are high and the lows are low, and I can get pretty fierce and fiery. And I'm an open book. Like my face will say it all. Right. So I've frightened a few of my teammates, but they also respect me for it. So
that's good. You'd mentioned, guys wanting to beat you and stuff like that. What has it been like in the beginning now? And this is a general question ish. But more talking about women in racing and stuff like that. We see that the WCR is here, and on the world stage now and stuff like that. So let's talk about, I've seen it from a male going to the track and seeing, hearing guys, talk about women and talk to and racing with women and stuff like that. What has your experience been like overall? Being a female in the paddock with obnoxious guys, for lack of a better word, because I know they're there.
I mean, it's been a long time since I've felt really anything. I don't know if it's the longevity or I'm not really sure what it is. But I've been around a long time. So I think that's also kind of proven that I'm sticking with it. I've, committed to the sport. I'm committed to, I've raced, I've had experience. I raced in Phillip Island. So, I mean, it's been a career. Yeah. So, I mean, it's been a thing that like, I feel like I haven't felt in years, but I do feel like sometimes there is that, what we call like the ponytail effect. I used to feel it in track days sometimes where guys would want to get by me or not want to get passed by me. But that literally, it hasn't been for a while since I felt that. When I would travel to different organizations years ago, ARMA had this thing where you had to go and race and they still do this now, but you raced, to race Barber, you would have to race a couple different other races. And that was hard for us because our closest racetracks are far from New England. Oh, yeah. And there was one little like caveat that if you raced internationally, you would be able to get in. So we went to Canada to go race. And it was a loophole and it made it work. But we went to this now defunct track called Autodrome St. Eustache because it was like the only race we could still make it to. And I went out and I had a bike issue and I'd never been on the track. And this guy comes in and tells my parents that I should probably wear an orange vest. And so there's been some of that stuff over that's, but that was, I mean, geez, that was long time ago. So it's been a while, but I do think, there's still people out there that might not necessarily accept women as much, but I haven't met them in a long time, and especially not in New England. I think there's enough women now that we've proven our point. We're there. We're competitive. We're serious about what we're doing.
Yeah, that'll be the second part. I mean, there are a lot more women racing today. I mean, I have a short, shelf life when it comes to motorcycle racing, just following it from 2012. But even from then till now, I think I've been to like 16 different tracks and stuff like that. We definitely see a lot more women in it. Are you surprised by that? You've been in it now, I guess like almost 20 years. Are you surprised at the amount of women that are in the sport now? And, when you look at Moto America, at Kayla and some of the other classes, how do you feel about that?
I mean, I have nothing but respect and enjoyment about seeing all the women out there riding. I have made some of the closest friends I'll ever make through riding motorcycles, because that track riding mentality is so different and not many people experience it. So, when I go somewhere and I see women riders and I see, women being out there being competitive and having fun. I mean, that's a big piece of it, right? Too, is like not just the competition. Like you want to make sure nobody is making money in this, really. So I think it's great. And I love seeing Kayla out there working hard and, bringing attention to it and all that they're doing with Build Train Race and, with the women's championship on the world stage. I think it's really showing that women ridership are a huge demographic. I mean, they're adding more to the sport than we had realized, I think, for a long time. And the motorcycle community is finally coming around to that.
Yeah, I completely agree with it. I definitely I enjoyed the WCR this year, and I'm glad it's there. And it's one of those things when I looked at it, because I when I thought about the riders from the U.S. that were there, they're like veterans essentially, which it makes sense because it's the first year, and they've kind of paved the way for the young riders. But do you think a lot of young female riders are going to start looking to go to the WCR stage or the world stage?
I sure hope so. I mean, I hope that this is just an avenue to have more women overall involved. I mean, what I love about, Kayla is, and I'm not saying that others haven't done this, but like Kayla is there for the riding, period. Like she is there to ride and beat as many people as she can. And, and that includes sponsorships and things like that. But she is serious business about what she does. And I think, women in the past have had to use other avenues to bring attention to it, which is great because they did, right? Like, so you think about Shalina Marita, who would do she did the makeup commercials, but she did them while she was riding her motorcycle. Like, that's amazing. That brought, women to be like, whoa, who is it? And I met her and she was so sweet. And so I think, we've evolved to the fact that Kayla can just be a rider now. Like, she doesn't have to be all these other things. And I love that we're getting to that point. I mean, it's not that I don't support women that want to do all of that as well. But Kayla can make it work with what she's doing, and that's awesome.
Right. Yeah. And I think it's great to see as well, as far as even like they gave her a ride without, there was no, if people were talking about it, I didn't see like saying she's a woman and stuff like that. It just, she had the skill set and they put her on a Ducati and she's been amazing. I mean, she was amazing in other classes too. But this year, she was amazing, which is great to see because, and I tend to see this with older guys that have issues. I was my daughter plays tennis, and she was on a tennis court with her coach, and there was an older guy in his 80s, and he was talking to me and stuff like that, and then one of his buddies called him on the phone, and he had it on speaker, and the amount of things that his buddy was saying about women, and I had to walk away. It was just kind of like, it's one of those things like, so I know older people, 60, 70, 80, whatever, it seems like they're still stuck in a different time.
Yep, absolutely. I completely agree. I felt it a little bit at some of the vintage orcs. when I raced with Armo, when I got fast, I was accused of cheating. And so, it's like, but I just can't be fast because I put the work into my racing. So, I think there's this, I agree that there's still this mentality of it, but I do feel such a large wave of the support for women in it. Yeah. And coming from all walks of life. I mean, if you were to ask anybody at any of our track days, they love the amount of women that are out there, and half of them, are getting passed by our women. So it's great.
Oh, definitely great to see. And for, women listening to the show and hearing this, what advice would you give to, females that are trying to get into riding, whether street riding, track riding, or racing?
Just do it. Just give it a try. I think everybody's, they're nervous about this, and they're nervous about what their partner might think, or they might, and if those are any barriers, just, if you want to do it, go and do it. I have a woman that I'm a fitness coach on the side, and she, on her 50th birthday, decided to go get her motorcycle license and got licensed. And now she rides all around. And it's just, it's never too late. There's so many resources for not only learning to ride, but then getting on track to ride. So I'm like, Nike summed it up. Just do it. And don't worry about, I think that's the biggest thing I hear from people is I worry, oh, I'm going to get in the way, or, oh, I'm this. Like, don't worry about it. Everybody started somewhere. Every person that you see in our Black group started somewhere. They did not get fast. Trust me. I saw a lot of them before they got fast. Nobody goes out and does like Black group pays right off the bat. So, everybody starts somewhere. Right. And a lot of times we'll invite people, if they're really nervous, I'll say, just come to our track day to see how it feels before you try it. You can sit on some classrooms and stuff. And I think they come and they're just like, oh, this is great. Everybody is really friendly and nice. Yes. It's not going to be all these people like, I'm coming to get you,
Right, yeah.
So, but I've had women reach out to me, and I'm always happy to talk to people about getting into riding and what bikes to choose and things. And there's so many options now. I've loved watching. When I first started doing track days, an SV was considered a small bike. Right. And it really weren't. But now with all these options of 400s, 390s, but that's not just it. I mean, if somebody wants to start on a larger bike, that's okay too. It's just more options for track bikes. Yeah,
definitely. I had Louis Ortega from Dainese on, and we were talking about education, and we were talking about women in racing and stuff like that. And he said, one of the biggest problems with women is, when they start listening to guys at the track. So if they don't listen to guys at the track, they're fine. So do you co-sign on that, or?
I mean, I'm glad that he said it. But yes, so I used to do personal instruction back when it was, when we weren't running the business. And I hate to say it, but my best learners were my women. Yeah. They would listen, they would take it in, they would do a lot. And I'm not saying everyone, but a lot of my women were really strong listeners, were willing to take it in. And I think at first it was hard because I had that kind of imposter syndrome of being a personal instruction person, taking a guy out, and I needed to get over that. But my women were always my stronger learners. So it's all right. I mean, it's not everyone, but even my husband and I run into that a little bit. I've been around the track a long time, and I've seen a lot of things. And, even as a couple, it's hard sometimes to learn from each other with feedback and things. So, it's a little bit of everything. But I mean, a lot of times people will come up to me and ask questions, and I love when they do. I love when someone's like, hey, do you want to go out and do a session together? I'm like, yes, it's so much fun.
Now, I see you have the Smith Cycle Track Day shirt on and a hoodie on. And let's talk about that a little bit, because you're mentioning instruction and stuff like that. So let's put it on the table. Let's talk about it. How did this come about for you and Paul, and how's the adventure been so far since you guys have taken over?
Yeah, I mean, the adventure has been amazing. So back in the pandemic, I was working a corporate job. I was working in study abroad, traveling all over the country, and it just really wasn't working for me anymore. So I had started to dabble in looking for a new job, and then the pandemic hit, and that was that. I got laid off within the first, actually at the end of March. So I was like real early first waves of the pandemic layoffs. And in the flip side, Paul worked in computers at a school district. So his job went through the roof, and my job just completely ended. So it was a tough time. I struggled a lot. In the meantime, my dad, who had cancer, he passed away in April of 2020. So, it was just all of a sudden I had no job. My dad passed away. Like, it was a lot to go through. And then probably, maybe midsummer to 2020, Tony had kind of approached us. He had put it out there that he was interested in handing over the business, or, looking for the next his person to take it over. And once he saw that I had gotten laid off and the pandemic was really messing with him, I mean, I remember Thursday before Memorial Day, we were all going for the track day at Palmer because it was outside, and it got canceled like Thursday afternoon, and it was just, he was like, I can't do this anymore. So we started thinking about taking it over. And his one big thing was that it really needs to be your main focus. Like, so it became successful when he made it his main thing to do. And so Paul and I talked about it, and that's, we ended up taking over. So 2021 was our first full year of running it. Mm-hmm. And it was amazing. It had, it has its challenges, but everything, all the good outweighs that. So the first year we had a lot of learnings. Working with your husband is, well, actually, so fun fact, we have learned so much. That could be probably a whole other podcast, but no, so we got engaged in September of 2020 and married in August 2021. So we had a lot going on in that first year, but I think we've grown a lot in how we work and what that all looks like. So I feel like that part has been so beneficial for us in our relationship, and to have that success together. And so we ran the business for 3 years as Tony's Track Days because it was easy. Mm-hmm. And we kind of rebranded a little bit to ourselves. And then last year, it just became clear. A lot of people were asking us, like, what are you going to do? Some people were asking us, is there a Tony? Because they had never met him. He had stopped coming to a lot of track days. I'm like, oh, there's a Tony, and you'll know when he's here. He's got big personality and big hat and whatever. But yeah, so we went and asked a few designers, and we ended up with the man who runs the USCRA. He doesn't own it, but he runs it. Doug Donnellan has a creative business, and we sat down with him. And so when we talked about all the options of what you would name a business, we came down with Cyclesmith. Just because when you're a smith, it's the art of something, it's creating something. It was my dad's business name, so I think there was a lot to play on that. And then we went into design mode, and I just remember on January 1st when we hit the send button on it, I was like, oh my God, what are we doing? And, but it's been incredible. The response of it, especially when people find out the history of the name and everything has been awesome. So yeah. And going back to what it is, we love this. I mean, we're so lucky that Tony chose us to take this over. The hardest part of this job is when my friends get injured and my customers get injured. That's really something that I'm working on as an owner. Right. And it's prevalent in this, but we've seen, with airbag technology and things, and we're doing everything we can as a business. We actually record every crash. We want to make sure that there's if there's any, what's happening today. We look back and there's 4 cold tire crashes in turn 2, and it's 2 of them were on the out lap. So just kind of educating our customers as much as we can to try to avoid them going down. But yeah, and then I think with Cyclesmith, we just say for a lot of people, some people come for the riding and stay for our culture, and some people come for our culture and stay for our riding. So I really think that's a lot of what it is.
Nice. What's a weekend like for a track day? I guess you can do it in 2 parts: as a rider going to the track, and we can talk about, as the organizer of the track day or track weekend.
What I love about track day, so as a rider, I think the coolest thing about people pulling in on let's say it's a Friday through a Sunday, or Saturday and Sunday. The brigade of vehicles that come in, from RVs and trailers to pickups with a bike in the back to, with an easy up. I mean, there's everything in between. I think people, when they come, they think there's always going to be either all these RVs or, it might not be that. I think people are always surprised at kind of the vast majority of tents and up from there. Yeah. And you get there, typically we don't have tech till the next morning. So a lot of people just hang out. And then, the next morning tech opens at 7. And then we have a riders meeting at 8. So with tech, you just bring your bike and your helmet. We're going to go over and make sure, you've got enough life on your brake pad, your tires look good, your chain, and then everything else, just making sure things aren't hanging off. And then riders meeting at 8. And new riders will come to our riders meeting, and then they go to a separate classroom to talk about what their day will look like, and kind of intro to the track. So we really pride ourselves in our new rider program and making people feel as comfortable as possible. I talked to somebody last year and I was like, how's your first day going? And they're like, it's great. I am so humbled. I think some people come in with, a little bit of an ego, and then they watch the black group go out, and it's, kind of brings them back down, which is great. It all means like we all have lots to learn. And then we ride throughout the day. We take a break for lunch, either between 12 and 1 or 1 and 2, depending on if they look like there's weather coming. We'll adjust lunch earlier so that we can try to avoid the weather, things like that. And then at 5 o'clock, we'll close up. We have 15-minute sessions. So we run 4 groups. Our beginner group, we have like a slower intermediate, a faster intermediate, and then our fastest group. And then at 5 o'clock, my dog gets very excited because it's track walk time. And so we do a track walk at 5:15, of which she'll lead you around and jump around. And we'll send a staffer out, though, to talk about lines and answer questions. And, a lot of times it might be the first time that they've ever walked the track. And so we tell them to bring water, especially at Palmer, because it's up. You keep going up and then back down. There's classroom between each session except for lunch and after the first session. So kind of just the day kind of keeps rolling. And, if we have an incident or someone goes down, we'll try to adjust the schedule as much as we can, get people back on on schedule as quickly as we can. So yeah, that's it sounds easy, but there's a lot going on. There's people coming and going and bikes coming and going, and it's awesome.
Yeah. I think you've been doing it for so long that it seems like it's not organized chaos. When I say that, I do want to just point out though, we would not be able to do any of what we do without our amazing staff. They really are what makes the day move. I'm there to with my walkie-talkie to make sure the track is, but everything that goes on in the pits is really them. So they're incredible. Nice. That's what keeps the business going, is having an amazing staff. What's one or two things that's a must-have at the track that newer riders may not think about on their first or second day or second time going out?
Yeah, I think a lot of people, we have people that still ride in, tape up their mirrors, tape up their lights, ride the day, and then they ride home. So that is definitely a thing.
Oh, wow, okay.
And that's great. I mean, we totally support that. If that's what you're going to do, our biggest thing would just bring water and bring snacks. Just make sure that you've got enough in the day to hydrate.
A chair.
A chair is great if you can. But we do at Palmer, we have there's a big tent. And so there's people that have literally just parked their bike next to the tent and set up in there for a little while. And, and I'm okay with that as long as, they're coming in for the day, if they don't have a way to bring a lot of stuff with them. A chair if you can, but definitely some water and snacks. And I think people get nervous, I'm not running tire warmers. I'm like, I don't typically run tire warmers, so it's okay. I think there's this, or my suspension is not all adjusted. That's okay. If Tim Hogan's there, he can look at it, or you're going to ride the bike and you're going to figure it out. It's okay. I rode on stock suspension for years on the SV on track. So I think, people get nervous when there's all this stuff to do. And I'm like, nope, you can just simplify it. It doesn't have to be a big thing. We have a list on our website of suggested things to bring some sunscreen, because you'll be out in the sun a little bit. And a lot of times I just tell people, bring an open mind, be ready to learn, because it's going to be a lot, especially on your first day. We suggest people doing 2 days because your first day is so much that to process, to take that time. And if you can do the second day, it really helps a lot. Nice.
Now you talked about being I believe a fitness instructor part-time.
Yeah. Yep.
How much does fitness play a part in track riding and racing? And the other part is, how how is it for you switching your brain from track mode to race mode?
It's a good question. It's a good question. I mean, I do think that fitness plays a role in it, and I think it will. So when I was first started to ride, I was into fitness, but I didn't really understand what I was doing. I did some classes. I'd go to the gym and kind of do what I thought I did. I did get to a point in my life where I'm pretty sure that when I ride hard, but if I ride efficiently enough, my fitness level doesn't have to be super high. So I think there's an interesting balance there. I'll be completely honest. The reason that I am into fitness as much as I am is for the mental aspect of it. It quiets my mind. It really is a way for me to get out energy. I run at a very high level. And so I have to get that out. And then, so I think fitness is a big thing. I think, for me, making sure my core and my legs are strong for riding, that's my main focus. And then switching my brain. So my first year I did it was really tough. It was hard. But this year I drew some boundaries on my time. And that really, I think, helped me be a better fitness coach and also helped me be better in the business for myself. And so, with Orange Theory, I'm on mic for an hour telling people what to do, which I love. And I do have to do it at 6 a.m. So, there's times where I've come back from the track at 9:00 at night because, we all want to go out and hang out afterwards for dinner and then come home and I have to get up at 4:50 or whatever to go and coach. But I do love it a lot and I wouldn't keep doing it if I didn't. And if it affected the business or I thought it took away from Cyclesmith, that would be a different situation. But I don't believe it does. If anything, I think they've complemented each other because I'm helping people in their fitness routines. I'm helping people with their riding. And I think for me, the mental coaching aspect of it is really important.
And managing that time so you're not burning the candles at both ends, as they say. Exactly.
Nice.
And how can people find Cyclesmith Track Day? Is this cyclesmithtrackday.com?
Mm-hmm. Cyclesmithtd.com. And we got lots of info on there. We're working on our schedule for next year, which will look pretty similar to this year. So we've got Palmer, Thompson. We're going to go back up to Tamworth, so stay tuned on that, Club Motorsports. And then we're hoping to add NC Bike in at the end as well, because that's just a really fun end of the season road trip. So,
gotcha. Yeah. And how many rounds is that for the year?
Good question. So we run, we have a couple 3-day events. We have a couple 2-day events. So I think there's 18 to 19 days in total. And then most of them are 2-day and we have a few 3-day mixed in there. So, yeah.
Nice. Now I see you have the Aprilia in the back there. Is that your new baby? How do you like it? How's it been for you on track?
Yeah, it's definitely my new baby. We saw it at COTA a year and a half ago, and I literally turned and texted Adam Kells from Seacoast, and I was like, "Are you getting a Trofeo?" And he was like, "Well, Paul has Seacoast bucks you can put towards it," which was like $6, so it wasn't much. But so they did get one, and we put our name on it. There was this big thing about, do you buy a built race bike or do you build a race bike? And that's a big question. One thing I like about the Build Train Race is that they do somewhat build out that bike, right? They put the specifications on it. And so it was a question that we talked to a few people about, and we decided to end up buying the Trofeo, which is the race prepped bike from Italy. So they imported about 20 of them last year. I did not ever think about the fact of riding a brand new track bike on the track. Like, what? That is crazy. This bike has 2 miles on it. Like, right. What am I thinking? Like, please, somebody knock it over. So it was kind of a tough year last year, but now that I've come to terms with it, it's a weapon of a bike. It is kind of incredible. It'll go almost anywhere you want it to go. Paul will follow me on the Ducati. And he, if he turns in where I turn in, he'll run off the track. He has to turn in earlier because they really did a great job with the geometry on this bike, the responsiveness to it. It gives me so much confidence in it. But, the big question is I bought my SV in 2004 for $4,000, right? And built it up. The 660 is not that. It's definitely, you've got to put the money into it to make it a really track capable bike. That being said, you can buy it off the showroom floor and ride it on the track. I don't think that that's necessarily a big issue. But if you're looking to track prep it, there's some money involved.
Right.
But I love it, and friends of ours have had them and had test ridden that, like, had known, and they kind of got some of the quirks out in the first couple of years. And so I absolutely love this motorcycle. When I talked about going back racing this year with Nemmer, Paul was like, well, you're going to take the SV. And I'm like, why would I do that? It's like, I mean, I love my SV, but that's like bringing a knife to a gunfight. Like, and if I have the gun, why wouldn't I bring it? So, so it's been an amazing bike, and it's really helped me progress as a rider as well.
Nice. And have you had a chance to ride a regular SV built up to see the difference, or any of your friends to kind of point out, like, because it seems like between Seacoast and I think it's HBSK, they build them out and stuff like that, and their package is around $24,000, somewhere around there, fully done. Have you had a chance to run against any of those other non-Trofeo RS 660s?
I have. So there's a few of them up at Loudon, and it's interesting. I have no motor work done, which, as someone who has blown up more motors than I want to talk about on my CB and two on my SV, I don't want to crack a motor open if I don't really want to or have to. And so, but that being said, I don't know what my competitors have. One of them, I was able to pull down the front straight, and it's not a weight issue. It's definitely, I don't know if his bike was just a little bit, if he watches this, he might reach out to me. And then there was another one that I couldn't pull on. So I think that, and most built bikes have actually better setup suspension than I do. So I have the Andriani in the front, and I have like the second level Öhlins on the rear. I ran the Adrianis on the SV, so I was, I'm comfortable with them, but they might eventually give me some limitations. I unfortunately still am a rider where it's, I think I'm a field rider. I'm like, it's kind of doing this, So I can't talk like Paul does. I'm like, he tries to understand what I'm saying. So, but I've been working on the suspension a little bit. So I don't think there's a huge advantage to the one that I have. And one of the disadvantages is it has all Spider stuff on it. So like my triple clamp, like all that stuff is all Spider rear set. So, if I crash at the track, it's not like I'm going around. Everybody's got Woodcraft stuff for me, but no one's got Spider. So we'll eventually change that over as well. So there's benefits, and there's also a bit of a drawback. But there's a fun thing about riding a track prep bike from Italy too. So yeah.
I hope to do it one day. I definitely hope to do it one day. Now, how, when you're racing and I think you took some time off from racing because you said you went back to racing this year. Was it easy for you to get back into I mean, you're doing the track days that I assume that probably made a little, at least, seat time comfortable. But did it feel as like you just left yesterday?
It's a good question. So I have trouble at track days focusing on my riding. If the day's going smoothly, then I can go. If the day's got some hiccups in it, it takes my mind away from it. So what I found that I need to go and ride. So Club had one of the members up at Club had invited us, up there to ride a few times, and that's been incredible. And so I felt like going back to Loudon, I was really nervous because I've been ridden all this. I have all these miles, and it's like, what am I going to do? My fastest lap time on the SV was a 21.5, and I did that my first race weekend back in like 18 or 19, and I never touched it again. So, it was like a little bit like, okay, what am I going to do? Everybody's like, I can't believe you're amateur. And I was like, I was running amateur times. Like and then I went out in my first race weekend. I think I did an 18.4 on the Trofeo. So, I had not ridden it at Loudon, so getting used to the bumps and, that was challenging. But it was the confidence I had in the motorcycle and just how many laps I had done there kind of came together quickly. So I ended the year, I did 2 rounds. I ended the year with an 18.2 as my fastest, and I'm pretty happy with that. So, so yeah, it was like putting on an old shoe, but I didn't tell a lot of people. I didn't want to make like I just wanted to kind of come back and ride. And that being said, it's so much support from everyone to be back out there doing it. And it felt really good to do it.
Nice. No, I met your mom. Met your mom, I think before the pandemic. I was riding by where she camps out and stuff like that. And we were just chopping up. My daughter was there. And we were talking, and she told me, you were her daughter and stuff like that. What has it been like to have your mom come and hang out and support? What's that been like for you?
It's great. It's hard sometimes. I know she's going to watch this too. It's hard sometimes because my mom's a bit of a nervous Nelly. And so, I'm a smart rider, and I'm going to do everything I can to be safe out there. She just gets really nervous, and I need to make sure that she doesn't like project that onto us. I could try to tell her that everything's great. That being said, the fact that my mom she can get within 100th of a second to my laps or like the lap timer on her lap time. She's so good.
Wow.
Yeah, she is so good. She's got such a quick, but yeah. So overall, I am so lucky that my mom is a part of it. She also helps out at our track days. So she helps out with registration and stuff. So the fact that she's that involved with us is awesome. I'm an only child. So, once my dad passed away, it was hard to go from a immediate family of 3 to immediate family of 2. And she's done an amazing job acclimating. She's actually going to move to New England, hopefully in the next year and a half.
Nice.
And so, so her plan is to come to the track as long as she can. And we really appreciate she, brings us dinner sometimes, and we all go out and have fun. And so, I feel lucky to have had it be such a big part of our lives. And, when I looked at a partner, I wanted them to ride motorcycles and I wanted them to be fast, but it was more important for my partner to want to do things with me. My parents did a lot together. And so like when Paul was racing, like I am going to the track and that needs to be okay. And so, we find out like we leave a lot of stuff away from the track. Like there's no heavy discussions at the track. There's no like, if something's going on with us, it needs to stay at home and, that kind of stuff. So, when you've got your family involved, I think it's amazing, but it also can pose its challenges both with your partner or my mom. She's seen a lot at the track, so I have to keep that in mind as well. I mean, with my dad and his accident. And so I think she's a pretty strong woman. She'll kill me for saying this. She's going to be 80 in January and she's still kicking and doing great and driving her RV up with her cat to the track.
So, I love it.
Yeah. So I'm a lucky girl.
Yeah, definitely. And wow. Yeah. And being an only child, I have eight siblings, so there's a lot of us.
Wow.
So I'm the youngest, but I guess it's similar to being an only child a little bit because I just figured out how to get more yeses than nos. But you get all the yeses.
I did. I got most of the yeses. Yes.
So what was that like growing up? Dad into motorcycles and stuff like that, and being an only child. What was your childhood like?
I mean, I think it was, it's that moment like where I wouldn't have changed a thing. It was tough sometimes because, my friends are all at home because my friends didn't travel as much as we did, which sounds so bratty to say, but we were here, we were there, we're driving to Wisconsin to Elkhart Lake, we're driving to Ohio. And sometimes I just wanted to stay home and go to the pool and with my friends. So, but, in retrospect, I wouldn't change a thing. I mean, it wasn't my mom's necessarily her choice to only have one child. And so I keep that in mind. And then growing up with my racing, I think I became the son that my dad didn't have. And we kind of bonded over the racing a lot. And that was a big piece for us. My dad had a kind of a rough childhood. And so he didn't really relate to me being like kid sometimes. And he did great. I mean, he was amazing, but I think, it was tough sometimes when I did kid stupid stuff, like went through the security barrier at London Heathrow and then couldn't come back through. And, so I think with my racing, it really brought us close together. And then, when you lose one of those immediate units and you only have 3 people, it's been great. Paul's really stepped up and helped us a lot. As a family and with my mom and trying to go through a lot of my dad's stuff and his lots of motorcycles. so I wouldn't change a thing. And I think it allowed me to do a lot of what I was able to do, especially with racing.
Wow. And it doesn't sound like you're going to be in one place for too long. I mean, I was going to ask, like, what's vacation like? Are you at Cancun on the beach or are you at a racetrack?
That's a good question. I do like the beach for a couple of days. Our next trip is actually to the Colin Edwards boot camp.
Cool.
So we're flying out, a month from today. This will be my 4th time there. We're going with a bunch of our staff and then a few other people as well. So that's going to be really awesome. And then in January, we're going to do the Separano Endurance Classic with Billy Sane and my husband, and then potentially Sam Faz. There's a couple of other people that'll be going. That is a really cool event where we are, you ride Saturday morning in one direction for 3 hours. Saturday afternoon in the other direction for 3 hours, and then Sunday you ride for 5 hours. And you can do 1, 2, or all 3. We did it last year and it was awesome. We did it on Billy Sane's Ninja 4RR, which is an amazing motorcycle. Yeah. We had some gearbox issues, but so that's it. And then we're going to go to Coda again at the end of March to go watch MotoGP. So sounds like right now what it's going to be. We'll take a little trip after the Jennings and we'll probably hit the beach for a few days and then head home.
Nice. Yep. And you guys, I assume, keeping up with MotoGP. And what are your thoughts on the on the last round? And overall, do you think Pecco has a chance?
I don't. I think Martin has shown some wild card, but I also think with him going to Aprilia next year, like he knows this is it. Like he doesn't have to. I'm a little surprised he actually hounded Pecco as much as he did in the first rounds at Malaysia, because he doesn't have to do that, right. And so, I think Martin's got it in the bag. If he doesn't, then he's he'd blow big time.
Yeah. I mean, he would have to crash out and not race the GP. I don't really. Or crash out, remount, and finish in the. Unless, I mean, what was it? Is this right? 2015 or 17? At Rossi had that grid penalty, and maybe something like that. But it would have to be Martin's doing for him to lose this thing.
And it would have to be really bad, because if they penalize him for something that was borderline, people would be in arms about there being a factory Ducati back, all that kind of stuff. So if he just puts on his big boy pants and just does his thing like he's been doing, I think it'll be in the bag. So it's been a great season. I mean, I think, with Moto3 and Moto2 being wrapped up with championships, but not MotoGP has been really exciting.
It has been very exciting. What are your thoughts on Marquez getting the factory seat over Martin?
I am not a big Marquez fan. I can't take away from his riding, and I do give him a lot of credit for his comeback. I mean, he definitely that was a lot for him to come back from what he did. So I'm not going to take any of that away from him. I think it's been so much more fun in the last couple of years to see more people dicing it up and not have it just be the Marquez show. So I'll be curious to see how that works next year with Pecco and him being on the same team. He's still learning a lot and crashing a bunch. So I don't know what that's going to mean, for next year. And he's not getting any younger. So I'm not sure. I just hope if anything, I just hope it's not boring.
Yeah, I completely agree. Hopefully it won't be. I mean, there's going to be 2 fewer Ducatis on the grid, so that that's going to be a little bit. I'm a big fan of Ducati, so I mean, some other people are probably happy to hear that's going to be 2 less Ducatis on the grid. Yeah, I think for him, Marquez. I think he might struggle next year on a 20. I think Pecco and him will struggle on a 25 bike, but Pecco just has more seat time on a Ducati. So I think Marquez is. I'm not a big fan either, but I recognize his talent. And so if anybody can get up to speed very quickly on a bike, it's probably going to be him. But I really think Morbidelli is going to be the one that kind of has a chance to step out front next year, because he's going to be on the same bike for next year, sort of like Alex Lowe's in Superbike being on the Kawi versus Ray. I mean, no one thought that Top Rock was going to do what he did on the BMW, but you know what I mean. So I do think that Morbidelli might have a good chance, but I don't see Mark I don't see Marquez winning next year. Maybe 26. But next year might be hard because I think Pecco will still be a contender, and I don't know how quickly Martin is going to get up on that Aprilia.
That's my biggest wild card. I mean, I love Aprilia. I love Maverick won when we were in Coda, which was awesome and exciting. And of course, the minute I bought the Trofeo, I had all the Aprilia. It was like a moment where I was just like, whoop, and like hat and everything and jacket. But I do think, I can't help but think Martine's not just like, oh no, like what's next year going to look like? So, yeah, I mean, I'm here for it. I've got my seat. I'm ready. We're going to go cheer him on at Coda and stuff. And, so yeah, it'll be interesting.
Nice. And I don't know where I'm going next year for MotoGP. I'm hoping to go to Japan. I was supposed to go to Japan for the year of the pandemic. I bought my ticket, everything, and I had to cancel all that stuff. So I'm hoping. I did Coda in 2019, and I was hoping. My goal was to go to a different track every year. So I was fortunate to go to Assen and Mugello. And then I did Coda, and then I was going to go to Motegi. What are your thoughts on, you've been following, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know how long you've been following MotoGP, but like, how do you feel about it this year versus the other years? Because it's really been fun to watch this year and really exciting. And even just the turnout of the crowd at some of these tracks has been record-breaking, essentially.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think that it's been fun to watch. You think about the evolution. I'm so bad. Like, I don't have that memory of like exact dates. I mean, I'll never forget Nicky Hayden's year he won. Yeah. I might have cried. So, but when you think about like years ago where it was just Yamaha and Honda, boring. No one could ride the Ducati. Rossi goes to Ducati and then he leaves Ducati because nobody can do it. Right. And it's clear that Ducati put the work in and put the time and the money into it. And, I'm curious about Honda because you hear a lot about Yamaha doing development, but we hear nothing about Honda. So are they just being quiet till the bikes change over? I don't know. So, and then Aprilia kind of has these moments of greatness and then they don't. So I don't know what that means either. So yeah, I'm here for it. I just hope it's as exciting and fun. I mean, yesterday's race was, the first couple laps and then it kind of settled in, which is okay. It couldn't have been that for the entire race anyway, but I do think that having different winners, having people dicing it up at the front, it's definitely more fun. I still miss Suzuki in the mix, and so, yeah. But it'll be interesting to see what Yamaha does. They're having those flares of greatness. I can't help but joke around sometimes that Fabio's like, this is great. I'm getting paid a ton of money anyway.
Yeah, and he doesn't have to crash if he doesn't want to.
Yeah, totally.
There's no pressure right now. What are your thoughts on the race going to Cataluna, the last round versus obviously Valencia with the flooding and stuff like that? I don't know if you saw any of that, but the flooding is unbelievable in all honesty from what I saw, and it's interesting. So when we were looking to move, it was either Venice or Sarasota County or Valencia. And so, because they were both by the equator, and we like warm weather and stuff like that. And there's no wars or anything going on, and it wasn't an island. So, when I first heard about them looking to reschedule, I was thinking, well, if Martin did well over this weekend, they might have canceled the last round. Because I believe last year they canceled one of the rounds. And if Pecco did well, I figured they would has to go to the last round. And it sounds like it's going to Cataluna, which is, it's a track I enjoy. I played on a video game and stuff like that. So it still should be a good race. I mean,
I did hear this morning that they're actually under flooding right now too.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. And there's been no date set for it. So it's like an unknown... like they're looking at when to do it, And so, clearly it has to happen somewhere. So I'm just like, have it happen somewhere. I want everybody to be safe. I think that some of the natural disaster, stuff that have happened this year down in North Carolina or what they're seeing, it's scary. And so, those poor people need to focus on what they need to. Unfortunately, that being said, that kind of event brings so much money to the area. When they don't have it, it's tough. So, I just, I'm just here for whatever they reschedule. I really have I mean, they could do it at NJMP. I would be there. So, yeah.
Me too.
So yeah, as long as they reschedule it and get it done whenever they can, I'm in for it.
Nice. Me too. Well, I want to thank you for coming on. Can you tell folks how they can connect with you and connect with Cyclesmith Track Day?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am on Instagram at Kerry Anna. So my name, KerryAnna 754 on Cyclesmith TD. So that's our Instagram. And then we also have a Facebook page and a group. So if you just answer some easy questions, that you're human and that you're not going to spam us, you can join our group where we've got lots of fun stuff talking about. We were, yesterday I posted up that Derek, who was riding, he got the Nikki Hayden Award down in Daytona, had ridden with us in NC Bike. So it's kind of fun, those little ties that we have to other people's successes and to watch him ride. He was so sweet. He loved my 660 because he wants to get into the Twins Cup. Yeah, so you connect me that way. I'm on Facebook as well. Love, hearing, especially from other women riders, but anybody really, and especially if you have questions on track days, I'm here.
Nice. I do have one question because you just said something that popped into my mind. What do you think about these young riders that we've seen come up and now, they're in, some are overseas, some are in Moto America Junior Cups and different classes. In your wildest dreams, did you think, these things, you play, it's like when I was a kid, I think I'm dating myself, but New Kids on the Block used to practice at the gym that I play basketball at. Well, in the auditorium, right? But they'll come and shoot hoops in between practice and stuff. And I was a kid, I was just like, they're not going anywhere. So I didn't, because I didn't Dorchester. I'm just like, but like, to be in it for me, the last 10 years or so in the motorcycle community, and to see these young kids, even, Nathan, who, I used to watch him, on his scooter kick around in the paddock and stuff like that. And to see where he's at now. How do you feel about seeing these young people in the sports like this?
I think it's so much fun to watch them, especially, when you've been around it long enough. So I used to race direct up at Box Shop Speedway in Maine. And so, I watched Ben Glotty when he was young, and we would go to Winchendon to do flat track and see Brianna McHugh. She would, pass me on the outside, and just to watch their successes have been so much fun. Same with Renee Franco. She was up there riding at Box Shop as well when she was younger, and now she's crushing the 400 field. So I love being able to, in the last however many years, watch their successes, follow them and what they're doing. And I love it. I can't wait to see what else they're going to do. I mean, we know racing is a hard one to get into, right? And it takes a lot of money. I'm a little concerned on a personal level about, the Junior Cup next year being forced to ride bikes, like they can't ride the 400s anymore with the KTMs being forced. So it makes me a little bit concerned because the package just got more expensive. And so I want to make sure that racing is so cost prohibitive anyway, especially when you start to go to a higher level, that like, I don't want to make it any more cost prohibitive. And so I hope people can step up to the plate and help out. People do GoFundMes. I know there's a lot of companies out there, like we're one of many, but like DP Brakes supports Paul and I and Cyclesmith, and they are so giving back to the entire racing community.
Yeah.
It's not just us. And so seeing them put that effort in makes me want to support them even more as a human, as a business. So, getting it out there, Mission Foods, they're really put a lot into Moto America and that kind of thing. So watching these companies support that and bringing some more money into that, which is what it needs.
Yeah.
So I love watching it. It's been awesome on not only the New England stage, but then watching them go national and beyond.
Yeah, I agree with you there. One last thing, and then I'll let you go. Yeah. You talked about the finance part of it, and we've talked about this on the show a few times about how difficult it is for riders to get a seat, and they have the skills. It's just the finance part of it, and I personally think that the payout should be different, or the formula should be a little bit different. I don't know if we can get to, Major League Baseball or NBA or something like that, where you just collect a check, you show up, you're in shape, you do what you got to do. When you're a rider and, you got to raise a certain amount of money just to ride, it makes it to me, makes it, and if I was in that position, it'd be very difficult to, do I take more risks because I need to make an income, or do I play it safe and keep going? And do you think that, Moto America, and I know at MotoGP top levels, those guys are getting a check and stuff like that, and even some in Moto America, but some of these riders don't. Do you think that formula should change to where riders just get a check and show up, or is it always? I mean, I know it's kind of how it's always been. With racing cars or motorcycle, you pay to play. Do you think there's a way for riders to just be able to show up and just get a check and ride versus having to raise the money themselves?
I mean, I wish that there would be. I think that there's a exposure level that the sport needs. I don't know if you or subscribe to Moto America Live Plus. I know anytime I go online, people are bashing it, but when they're racing somewhere, I leave that on all day.
Yeah.
And I just listen to it. If I hear a race coming on, especially when one of the few weekends we're home in the summer, or we watch the replays. But, I think that's moving in the right direction. But until we get to that point where there's more national exposure to it's more I hate to say this, but, F1 did it with their Drive to Survive, and really bringing that to the forefront of an entire nation that really didn't know motorcycles and racing and cars and racing that much, and made it cool. Amazon tried to do it with the MotoGP one, and I love that. I wish they had done it again. Yeah. So unfortunately, I just don't think we're set up as well to, if sponsors where the money comes from, are going to give money, then what does that look like? And, I had a conversation with someone one time about sponsorship, and when you list somebody as a sponsor, especially at a bigger level, at what point does somebody get their name on your motorcycle? Is it, what kind of level is it? Are they actually doing something for you? Right. And that could be in many different ways. So, yeah, I mean, I think a lot of riders, if we're talking about top level, like Marc Marquez, obviously he brings in a lot of his own money, right? To the team, because his sponsorships, things like that. And so, I think we're just far from that. I don't know if we're going to get there. I'm going to see us get there back to what it was in when you looked at pictures of Daytona in the 80s where there's people in the stands and stuff. I wish it would, but I'm just not sure we're close to that yet.
No, I completely agree. We're not. And but I think if there are more fans, I think that helps. I do believe if they, like any sport, the more fans you have, now you have revenue. And that's the hardest part. And I think the U.S. took a hit. Maybe the whole world took a hit with motorcycle racing, but definitely the U.S. Had taken a hit. Because we don't have a rider on the world stage. Moto2 is the highest level at this point, and Nicky Hayden and Edwards and these guys before, they put us on the stage, or helped kept us on the stage. So I hope that I was hoping that Roberts got to GP. And hopefully maybe he'll get there next year or something like that. But the U.S. definitely needs to be on a world stage again.
Agree. I know I was bummed about Joe. I think they made a great choice, and there's no question. but yeah, I think there was a bunch of us that were just, bummed to not have someone on the national stage. Look at Jack Miller, for instance. He's hanging on by, and thank gosh he's okay.
I know.
But he's hanging on. I was sick to my stomach yesterday. We were joking around that he was checking, his chain, make sure that the chain was good on Fabio's bike. It's good, mate. Don't worry. But yeah, him staying in, I can't help but that's not part of a move, because there's this entire country of Australia that's rabid motorcycle fans, and that helps his exposure in there. So if we can get that person in there that's got that personality, hopefully we can make some steps forward.
Yeah, definitely. You brought up isn't he such a humble guy? I don't know if you heard his press conference.
He is so sweet. I mean, both, honestly, the Moto3 winner, he is also both of them are super class acts. I just, it's really good to see. Yeah. like it just is so, yeah, it's really, cause sometimes the over the top, you know, like celebrating. It's a lot, you know, and I get it. They're super, I don't want to take anything away from them, but these guys have been, both of them have been true class acts.
Yeah, I completely agree. Well, I want to thank you for coming on. And, you know, like when I talk to anyone else with motorcycles, I could do this all day because it's just so much fun to do. But I want to thank you for coming on. Kerry Smith.
Thank you so much.